Hi, my name is Jeff Pulliam and you are watching Video Blast number 12, where we're going to be talking about the work breakdown structure and the responsibility assignment matrix. And the key understanding that we want to gravitate to tonight is the fact that when we talk about the work breakdown structure and we've broken down the work to these third tier or the action or activity level, it is here where we can now begin to describe the work in great detail, and in the effort to describing that work we're able to identify roles of the stakeholders that are involved with the execution of that work. So as we move ahead, let's take a look at our Frankenstein example. As you know, we've been talking about the construction of Frankenstein, which is a human specimen, and we've been having to deal with the work that is needed to do this. And as you know, we've identified limbs and torso and head as summary tasks, and with each of those summary tasks we have work packages which are in combination create these summary tasks. And so, for example, with the limbs we've got legs and we have arms. With the torso we consider the internal organs as vital to the construct of the torso, and heart and lungs are then very important to realize here. And then of course we focused in our earlier discussions in video blasts with the head, and the head has the vital work packages which include the brain, the eyes, and the ears. So as we look to focus then on the head in our discussion, we identified the work packages, the brain, the eyes, and the ears. And as you can see, the brain has listed two activities, activity 9 and activity 10, and so on and so forth with eyes and ears for activity 11 and activity 12 and activity 13 and activity 14. Now, as you can see, what we need to do at this level is, once we've identified the activities, we need to support those actionable items with a work breakdown structure. And so we did conclude from our prior video blast that with the brain we had an activity 9 that speaks to the description of the work that it is that we would be doing. And in this particular case, as an example, when you look at activity 9, you can see that we are getting with the team. We're collecting our team and getting together with our team and doing the act of brainstorming. We are going to list the brain type needs, and we gave a few examples here. Is that perhaps we're looking for a scientist's brain, a doctor's brain, a carpenter's brain. We need to identify through that brainstorming session a more specific type of brain that we need there. And so we've been able to describe that within this activity, which we will be considering at the work breakdown structure dictionary that speaks to these actionable items. And so we've done that with each of these activities and done a very specific description. Now, this is something that we need to think about and understand its importance, because as we describe what it is that we are doing, we are now being able to connect the roles of the stakeholders that will be involved with these activities. So as we move forward, you can see here I've got set up a responsibility assignment matrix, and you can see in the left hand column I've got the activity ID and the activity name, and you can see above along the top of the columns we've got here listed the stakeholders, or those stakeholders and their roles that they have to play. And you can see then that we've identified columns called R.A.C.I, which is our responsibility, assignment, consulting, or inform role, that each of these stakeholders above will be considered for and will be carrying through that particular activity. So as we look at, for example, activity number 9, we get with the team, we brainstorm, and we list a few of the brain type needs that we most likely will be discussing. The action of distilling and identifying the top 3 brain choices and then recording on an official document what those top 3 brain choices will be. And that is essentially the deliverable of that activity. So for example, when you look at the activity ID number 9, list brain criteria needs, that's the activity which we just shared and which I just explained to you. We have as a responsible party the mad scientist. Now we need to think about, what does it mean to be responsible? Well, responsible is the person who is going to be doing the work that's going to help in developing and creating the ideas that are going to be part of the selection of the type of brain. So in this case, the mad scientist will be one of those responsible parties. The mad scientist assistant will also participate and contribute to that brainstorming session. Of course, now when we look at the mad executive, that is essentially the project sponsor, they will be contributing, but they will be contributing not so much on a work basis, but maybe more likely on a consulting basis, where they're going to be providing input and ideas, but won't be part of that actionable piece of being involved with the brainstorming. And then of course we have the ultimate person who's accountable. That is the person who is in charge and supervising the event and becoming ultimately the one that has to carry forward with not only one, deciding on what are the 3 top brain choices that need to be identified, but also to record and to document that within an official formal recording that then is the deliverable that this particular activity is a result of. And so the mad project manager is going to be the one that ultimately is going to be accountable for this action and for this deliverable. Now it could potentially be that, as you can see here, that the mad scientist could easily be responsible and accountable, with then having the mad project manager have his role changed to be a responsible role. But I think in the conditions here that have been suggested, the mad scientist plays a very important role, but is really contributing work, where the mad project manager ultimately is responsible for the entire activity, and therefore we've listed him as accountable. So in this particular case, as you can see here, we've got both the mad scientist and the mad project manager as accountable. But this is not a good scenario, because with 2 people being held accountable, there is potentially some disagreement and some resistance on ultimately what should be the final work package, and it is best to keep one sole person singly accountable rather than a number of people accountable, because then that can lead to some less than clear expectations among those who are accountable, and that is a difficult aspect of project management, to be able to have more than one person be accountable for a situation. So if we can keep it to a single accountability, we are, I believe, in a better position to be successful. Now let's look at activity number 10. Activity number 10 is to identify, list, and select 3 hospitals and arrange and meet those hospitals in the viewing of the brains that we have decided to look for, and based on our criteria then be able to select the appropriate brain for our Frankenstein. Now when we think about the roles and responsibilities for that particular activity 10, which is the source and acquire brain, well, we realize that the mad executive, our project sponsor, will play a very important role here. And so we've listed this person as being involved with the work and helping to produce this work, and so we're calling them responsible. We also believe, as in the activity number 9 when we were identifying criteria for the brain, that the mad scientist also is a responsible party in putting together the work for the acquisition of the brain itself. Of course, we include the mad assistant because they in turn do help assist the mad scientist, and then therefore will contribute to the work in this acquisition. And we look at the hospital administrative piece as those who will be consulting. So when we look at this role overall for this activity, we see that the hospitals will be working on a consultant basis and not so much producing work, but will be a third-party vendor stepping in as an external party to work with us in procuring and providing us that brain product. And then finally, again, we need to have someone ultimately accountable for that activity and the results of that activity. And typically we'd like to be able to say that it's the project manager in this particular case.